Whoa.
Just quick dive into a story in the book of Samuel. Has anybody heard of the book Samuel? Is anybody named Samuel in here? We got anybody named Samuel? Anybody? For real? Got somebody? Hey, I need you to come up here. I need you to come up here. Samuel. Come on, give it up for Samuel. What's up? I'm Logan.
Hi, I'm Sam.
Great to meet you. All right, I just need you to stand here. You don't need to do anything. It's all good. But you just have in your mind, this is Samuel, all right? Now you can picture it. I'm a visual person. So I'm going to read this and just imagine this is Samuel. Here it is. So in Samuel chapter 3, verses 4 through 10, it says, "Then God called out, 'Samuel, Samuel.' And Samuel answered, 'Yes, I am here.' And then he ran to Elijah saying,'" You don't need to say it. I'll say it for you. Okay. So it's all good. Don't worry about it. 'Yes, I am here.' Then he ran to Eli, who's the guy he was staying with. He's a priest, saying, 'I heard you call. Here I am.' And Eli said, 'I didn't call you. Go back to bed.' So he goes back to bed. And then God called again, 'Samuel, Samuel.' And Samuel got up and went to Eli again. And he said, 'I heard you call. Here I am.' And again, Eli said, 'Son, I didn't call you. You can go back to bed.' And this all happened before Samuel knew God. So Samuel, he didn't know God. And it was before the revelation of God had been given to him. So he's like, I don't really know who this is. All I know is my name is being said, and I'm showing up. So then God called again, a third time. And yet again, Samuel got up, went to Eli, and Samuel said, 'Yes, I heard you call me. Here I am.' And that's when it dawned on Eli. I'll be Eli for the story. It dawned on Eli that God was calling the boy. So Eli directed Samuel. He said, 'Go back, lie down. If the voice calls again, say, "Speak, God, I'm your servant, ready to listen." And so Samuel returned to his bed, and then God came, stood before him exactly as before, calling out, "Samuel, Samuel." And he answered, "Speak, I'm your servant, ready to listen." Thanks, Samuel. Come on, give it up for Samuel. Give it up. Amazing. So what we see in this story is we see that God starts speaking to Samuel, but he doesn't know exactly who it is. And so he runs to Eli, and he's like, "What is it? I don't know. What do you need to tell me?" And Eli's like, "Wait a minute. I think God's trying to speak to him." So then God starts to speak to Samuel, and we'll get to what he talks about in just a second. But then Samuel goes back, he hears from God, and then he goes back to Eli, and Eli says, "What did he say to you?" Eli asked, "Do not hide it from me. May God deal with you, be it ever so severely, if you hide from me anything he told you." So Samuel told him everything, hiding nothing from him. Then Eli said, "He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes." Then the Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground, which I think is pretty cool. Whenever I read that, he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. I'm like, that is awesome. Like, you know when you just say something dumb and you're like, like it just comes out of your mouth and you're like, no, like I should not have said that. Like you say something to your teacher and you're like, that was terrible. Or you say something to a friend, or you say something to that girl or that guy that you like, and you're like, what'd you say? And you're like, nothing. And you just run away. And you're like, I shouldn't have said anything. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. But Samuel grew up in a priest's house. Eli was a priest, and I'm a pastor's kid. And how many of you grew up in church? You're like, hey, I've been here since the day I was born. And then the other half, you're like, hey, I just was invited, and those church kids are weird. It's okay. I was a church kid. But what the thing about Samuel is he didn't know the voice of the Lord. You think Samuel, he grew up in the house of God. He grew up under the priest. You think he'd know exactly what God means. But maybe you're in this place, and maybe you feel like you don't know what the voice of God sounds like. And you're here and you feel like somebody's saying your name, or you feel like somebody's pulling you in a direction, and you're like, I don't really know what God's trying to speak to me. And the reality is, God has been speaking to you this whole time. You just haven't been listening in the right way. And maybe you didn't even know that it was God. But it's hard to hear the voice of God when you're not planted in the house of God, which you guys are doing a great job. Just pat yourself on the back right now. Just say, I'm in the house of God. It's great. Amazing. You're doing an awesome job. But it's hard to hear the voice of God when you're not in the house of God, when you're not a part of God's life, when you're not near him, when you're not near to what he values. And the house of God doesn't always just mean church, but really what it means is, God, I'm going to spend time with you. I'm going to be in your word. I'm going to go to camp. I'm going to be at everyone nights. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to worship. I'm not going to be distracted on my phone. I'm going to be talking to my friend. I'm going to be focused in and listening on what he has to say to you. And really, God just wants to hang out with you. Just like I'm here hanging out with you guys, God just wants to hang out with you. And he's saying, I want to speak to you because I have amazing plans. He created you to do amazing things. And God just wants to spend time with you. And really, not only was Samuel rooted in God's house, he was a part of it, but he was planted under the spiritual authority of Eli, which was me in the story. So just, again, visual people, I get it. And there's a lot of people in this room that are your spiritual authority. There's people that love to help you. But so many different people in this room care about you. But what Samuel knew was he needed to listen to what Eli was telling him. He didn't necessarily know that God was speaking to him. So maybe you're here and maybe you feel like there's a call of God in your life. Or maybe you feel like, oh, I'm supposed to go to camp. Or maybe you feel like I'm supposed to do this $1,000 summer and I'm supposed to do this. That's what all the youth leaders are here for, to bring it to them and say, I feel like God is speaking this to me. Could you help me understand it? And so maybe you're in 6th grade or 10th grade or 12th grade or whatever it is, and you feel like, man, I need to have it all under control. I need to have every answer taken care of. I need to know everything, where I'm going to college, how I'm paying for it, what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And you're like, no, you're in 7th grade. Just relax. It's okay. But that's what the people are here for. That's what the youth leaders are here for. That's what pastors are here for. That's for what many of your parents are there for, to say, I want to help you. I want to coach you. And really, Samuel was there, and he just went to Eli saying, what are you trying to tell me? And Eli goes, no, that's God sharing that with you. Why don't you go back to bed, and why don't you listen to him, which I think is pretty cool. And then the last thing is, obviously, when you're listening to God's voice, it's important that you obey it. Because there's a part of it where you're like, oh, yeah, I'm listening. How many of you know, like, you heard what they said, but you didn't actually live out what they said? You know what I mean? It's like, you've all been there with your parents. They're like, all right, clean your room. You're like, okay. Then like an hour later, they're like, did you clean your room? You're like, huh? What? I didn't hear you earlier. But you said okay. Oh, no, I was talking to that person on my headset I was playing that game with. I didn't hear you. Or how about this one? I always got in trouble for this one. It's confession. It's church. I'm sorry, guys. But my dad or my mom would say, hey, Logan, I have one brother. His name's Connor. And they say, hey, can you go upstairs and grab Connor from his room for dinner? I go, yeah. Connor! And they're like, I could have done that. I'm like, so why didn't you? Come on, am I right? And they're like, okay, go upstairs and get him. So then I go up to the stairs. Connor! Mom and Dad want you for dinner! And they're like, Logan, we could have done that. I'm like, so why didn't you? And they're like, because clearly he's not listening. Clearly he's probably got his headphones in, or clearly he's ignoring you, or clearly he's doing something. So you need to go upstairs and you need to grab him and come downstairs. And maybe you're here and maybe God is speaking to you and maybe he's telling you to do something. And he's saying, I want you to raise that $1,000 in the summer. Or I want you to invite that friend to church. Or I want you to share your faith at that faith club. Or I want you to show up to that event. And you're saying, okay, that's awesome. I'll post about it and then we're good, right? And God's like, that's not what I asked you to do. And you're like, okay, well, maybe if I give just a little bit, not what you asked me to do, but if I just gave maybe $1, that'd be cool because that's, that's all I can really do. I mean, I'm in 7th grade or I'm in high school or, I can't really do much. And God's like, but that's not what I asked you to do. And what God's asking you, all of a sudden, you're up there on the stairs, reaching your neck around the corner saying, Connor! And he's not coming down because you're not doing what God asked you to do. And what we learn from Samuel is Samuel does the hard thing. He says yes to being obedient. And you heard what Eli said. He said, tell me everything that God told you. Now, you know what God told him? This is in 1 Samuel 3:12. This is crazy. So God says, I'm letting him know, Elijah, know that the time's up. I'm bringing judgment on his family for good. So Samuel here has to go tell Eli, say, what did God tell you? He told me that God, he's bringing judgment on your family for good. That had to have been awkward. Could you imagine, all of a sudden, you go up to your mom and dad and it's like, what's God telling you? ooh, God told me you're going to lose your job. And he told me that car that you just bought is going to get struck by lightning. It's like, what? And Samuel's like, I'm sorry, I'm just the messenger. But how awkward do you think that was? He's like, I got to be obedient. And Eli's like, no, you got to be obedient. You got to trust me. And so if Samuel can go to Eli, and if he can say, you know what, I'm going to be obedient and tell you exactly what God told me. I'm going to be obedient, and I'm going to tell you exactly what it was that he told me. And even though it's difficult, even though it's hard, maybe God's asking you to do something that you feel like is hard. Maybe you say, maybe I'll do that when I get to high school, or maybe I'll do that when I get to college, or maybe I'll do that next summer. How about we be a youth group, we be a ministry where we say we want to listen to exactly what God's telling us. We want to bring that to the people in front of us, our leaders, and then we want to go out there and do it.